this whole week we're kind of just taking it easy, going a little bit slower than usual. So today we're working on part 1, and then Wednesday is part 2, and Friday just more of taking it a little slow. Also, we only have 2 homeworks due this week. We have the part 0 due tonight. If you haven't looked at that, I'd recommend doing so because there's 1 or 2 weird questions in there. And then we have the part 1 homework due tomorrow night. So you might not be entirely done with this, but that's okay. I'll just give you a reminder of what we were talking about last time. In part 1, we were taking a look at this raw data here, and we were essentially just counting things like how many projects were in a certain category, that sort of thing. A couple things to remind you of. I mentioned you can delete these 3 columns if you want. It shrinks the file size a little, which is nice. And then it's going to be helpful to create these 3 columns over here that tell you whether or not a certain project met its goal by comparing the pledged amount versus what you were actually trying to raise. We use this brand new function equals year on this guy to strip out the year. And then last of all, one more if statement that either puts the pledged amount in this cell if you were successful, or like in the case of like these down here that were not successful, puts a 0 because you wouldn't collect anything. And then these tables I have over here are just the questions that part 1 was asking about in the workbook. So there's nothing crazy there. Just a few little tips I suppose I'll mention. When you have tables like this, you might as well set it up so you can drag, and then having like drop downs for these category parents and categories can be nice because then you don't accidentally type something that is not there. What else? Oh, down here in the workbook for part 1, when they're asking you to say like, how many projects have a goal level between 0 and 10,000? In the workbook, it just looks like a -0 -10,000. You can't actually type that in a cell because then you can't reference it. So just make sure when you get down to this part that you type these 2 things in their own cell so that you're able to reference them individually. And if you want, you can do what I did, where you can put the inequality symbols right next to them, or technically you can put these inequality symbols in the formula itself. It makes your table look a little nicer, but it makes your code a little uglier, so a little trade-off there. Oh, and then last of all, these also have like a little average if on the back end, averaging the numbers in column K.